Hey guys, it's Megan. So, how many of you have ever experienced a long distance relationship? Whether it be a romantic relationship, whether it be a pen pal relationship, whether it be, family relationship, long distance relationships. This usually applies to pretty much any of them, but I'm talking like friends or romantic relationships. Alright, growing up, my dad was in the Air Force and we traveled all over the world. Well, I met boys, from the bases that we lived at. I met a couple from, some from Japan, some from Norway, some from Germany, some when... I'm sorry, that's my husband snoring. Some when I would meet them, but maybe our dads or our parents wouldn't have tours that were about the same, so maybe I'd meet the person for a few months and then they'd move away, or a year and then they would move away. Well, one time when I was in elementary school or middle school, it was middle school, high school time. Our church was hosting a youth rally. Now, I had been to a couple of the other youth rallies in the area through the church that I go to, the Church of Christ. And we'd gone to probably one or two other cities, areas in Germany, and worshipped with the other congregations. And at one time, I got to stay with this family called I think their names were the Foxes. It was a nice couple. They had kids, and we would go to the church things, and then they would take us back to their house, and we'd spend the night there. Well, they spoke English, and they were American, and they were, military members, and we all went to the same church. Well, that was nice and everything, and I met a couple of these boys through there that I really liked. Well, because we had similar backgrounds and where we came from and stuff, we struck up a friendship. And back when you're in middle school, high school, you will consider somebody, you're going out with somebody when you either call each other, you pass notes, you hold hands. Sometimes you see each other outside of the, church or school or wherever you know the person from. Well, one of the boys I was talking to at the time lived like 2 hours away. Well, then on another trip, I think I got to see him on another youth rally trip, and I think this particular trip, my friend Carla and I, we got put in the same house, and we stayed with this really nice German woman, and I remember that experience was interesting because she couldn't speak English, and she went to the church with us and everything, and then she would let us stay there afterwards, and we spent the night in her library. Now, we got to hang out with these boys, but everything was always supervised. It wasn't like we had this one-on-one time. Well, then on that trip, I remember we slept in this lady's library. It was a little old lady. She fed us breakfast and everything, and then we went back to the church. Well, I remember the only thing there that we could do, or the only American show that we had that came on the TV, was Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and I to this day cannot stand watching that just because it was terrible, it was horrible, and honestly, it's not I don't know, I don't find them all that funny. Well, on that trip, I think we decided that we wanted to start going out. Now, basically that meant we just sent each other letters or emails. I don't know, I think we were emailing at that time, I don't remember. Or possibly through, I don't remember how we communicated. I don't know if it's email or through the mail or through the church or something. Well, then, my friend Carla and I, we worked with our congregation and our youth group to host one of the youth rallies. And we went and talked to the high school that was on the base, Bitburg, that we lived at, to see if it was possible, if they would allow us, instead of the families that were in the congregation, to take in the guests that were coming in from the other churches, if we could basically have use of the 2 gymnasiums, and we could sleep in the gyms, and that would save having to send us somewhere. So they agreed to let us do that, and I remember us going shopping for the stuff and getting it set up and everything. And the one nice thing I remember is we were all sitting in the front of one of the locker rooms, and it was early one morning. It might have been the Saturday, or it could have been the Sunday. It was probably the Saturday. I remember all of us sitting there, and then we went outside. A few of us went outside and sat on the bleachers, and we watched the sun come up together. And, you know, it was nice, but at the same time it was bittersweet, because I knew by the end of the weekend that we weren't going to be able to see each other again. And, I mean, when you're a middle schooler or, you know, beginning of high school, you think, you know, first, you think you're in love with the person, you think it's going to work out and it's going to be great and this and that. Well, it's heartbreaking, because then while I'd still continue the friendship, I started talking to this other boy that I went to school with. Well, we sort of started, quote-unquote, going out, but this one was somebody that lived close there. Well, then he was getting ready to move away, so we broke up, and then there was this other boy that I liked, but I was trying to tell, and I can't even remember their names to this day. So I had met this other kid, and I was like, well, let's go out. And it was hard to juggle that, and it was like I felt so bad to close one off to start another one, when in the end, none of them worked out. But I learned, being older, that long-distance relationships can be tough, but if you really put in the work, they could be worth it. I know many military families who have to, the husband and the wife have to be separate from each other for a while, because one gets deployed or stationed somewhere where you can't bring the family, or circumstances arise where the family can't come with them, so they have what you would call, sometimes they would come home on what you would call leaves to visit, but a lot of the times they'd be gone indefinitely, or they'd have a length of time, and sometimes it'd get extended. Well, I also know another time growing up that my dad had to go to tech school, I think it was, in either Texas or up north or something. I'm not really sure where it was at. I don't even remember, and it's irrelevant as to where it was. The point of the story is he was gone for like 6 weeks, and it was over Thanksgiving. And I remember my mom was working, and they got to talk on the phone, I think, but they didn't get to see each other. And that takes a strong couple to make it work, even when they're not together, you know? I mean, I get it if one works overnight and the other one, you know, you work a swing shift and something and you pass in the night, but when you have to be completely separate and you both have to kind of keep it together, it's hard. Long-distance relationships with a relative is hard, too, because sometimes you want to be with them and sometimes, you know, you like your space. Well, I'm fortunate I have some family that lives up here, but the majority of my family is either south or a little bit to the west, and there's some that's north. How do I want to put this? My family's scattered, so when I know somebody's going to be in a general area or is going to be closer, I want to visit with them. And I think I have an uncle that's working like either in Milwaukee or Ohio right now, and I heard that he was supposed to be, and he was going to be working in Ohio but staying in West Virginia. And I remember I drove through West Virginia several years back, and it was dark. We were in I think the mountains at the time, just trying to get from Milwaukee back to Virginia on a trip, and I just remember that those roads were narrow and everything. But the roads are, irregardless. I'm babbling and I don't mean to, but what I'm trying to get back to is, you know, he's close, but I don't even get to talk to him. And excuse me, the last time I saw him, it had been like 14 years that had gone through since I'd seen him, and I think now we're about to 15. He never met my first husband, and I hope one day that he will meet my second husband and my final husband. So, long-distance relationships are hard. And for me, I've had to deal with them a few times where somebody goes away and you have to, make it without them being around. But for me, I'd rather not have the long distance. I'd rather have the person here, just because I feel like I worry so much when they're gone that it's so much better when they're there, when they're here with you. But, it takes a lot of faith, a lot of prayer, a lot of trust in each other, and you can make it work if you want to. If it's meant to be, it's going to work. If it's not, then you've given it the good, try. But relationships in general are hard, whether they be long distance or here, but they add more stress and more pressure when they're long distance, when you have to go long periods of time without seeing each other. So I'm going to close this one for now. Like, fave, share, subscribe. You can leave me stories about your long distance relationships or something, and maybe I can feature it if you'd like to or something. Alright, Megan Shepherd 81, meganshepard81@gmail.com. Bye.